Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into some absolutely mind-bending discoveries about the brain, exploring the frontiers of biological maintenance and technological augmentation. We're looking at a massive paradigm shift in how we understand the human mind. For a long time, the consensus was basically that the brain is a static organ. You get what you get, and then you just try to manage its slow decline as you age. But the latest neuroscience completely shatters that view. We are now learning that it's a dynamic system we can actively regenerate, clean, and even technologically bridge.
Okay, let's dive into this. What if losing your mind, or even your voice, just isn't an inevitable part of aging or disease anymore? Think of your brain not as some machine that just rusts and wears down over time, but more like a bustling, dynamic city. And just like a city, we can clean its streets, we can rebuild its infrastructure, and when disaster strikes, we can build high-tech bridges to bypass the damage. Today, we're going to look at how we maintain the city, both biologically and technologically.
So let's jump right into Act 1, the night shift. Unconscious cleanup and biological maintenance.
Let's start our journey deep inside the brain during the one time we think it's shutting off, right? When we are asleep. For decades, we thought sleep was just passive downtime, but a landmark 2026 Nature study completely flipped that. It turns out sleep is a highly active cleanup process. Scientists found these things called peripheral macrophages. Basically, these are immune cells that actually live outside the brain. But when you go to sleep, they interact with the brain to literally clear away waste lipids. And researchers found that if this lipid clearance gets disrupted, it directly impairs memory and even shortens lifespan in animal models. So sleep isn't just rest, it is vital, active biological maintenance, keeping the city streets clean.
And the long-term stakes of that nightly cleanup are absolutely fascinating. Researchers recently discovered that your overnight brainwave data, your sleep EEG, acts as a non-invasive digital marker. If your brain is well rested, its brain age matches your actual chronological age. But if you have an older-looking sleep EEG pattern, that's actually associated with an elevated future risk of dementia, meaning your sleep quality today is literally forecasting your cognitive health years down the line. It gives us this incredible window into brain aging way before any memory symptoms even show up.
But hey, your brain isn't just taking out the neural trash at night, it's also acting as this highly sophisticated filing cabinet. During NREM sleep, your brain is stabilizing and integrating all your new experiences into long-term knowledge. Have you heard of sleep spindles? They're these quick bursts of brain activity that actively support learning and reorganize your memories while you are completely unconscious. Then there's REM sleep, which drives what scientists call prediction-based neural differentiation. It's a fancy way of saying it helps your brain separate similar memories so you don't confuse them. You're actively organizing your knowledge and prepping your mind for whatever tomorrow throws at you.
Moving on to Act 2, the lifetime marathon, building conscious cognitive resilience.
So, we've looked at the unconscious cleanup, but what about the conscious daily habits we actually control? Well, look at this number, 14. That is a massive, empowering number. The Lancet Commission recently expanded its list to 14 modifiable dementia risk factors. This is huge because it means nearly half, up to 45% of all dementia cases globally, could potentially be delayed or even prevented entirely through lifestyle and public health changes. Cognitive decline is absolutely not a foregone conclusion. It's a battle we actively have weapons for.
So what are these weapons? What are these habits? Some are surprisingly everyday actions. Treating vision and hearing loss are huge ones, mainly because untreated sensory loss puts extra cognitive load on your brain. Controlling high LDL cholesterol protects your brain's vascular system. Then there's the US Pointer study and long-term NIH trials, which showed that adaptive speed of processing brain training can actually delay a dementia diagnosis by decades. And here's a fun one from a Swedish study. Not all sitting is equal. Mentally active sitting, like reading or solving a puzzle, protects cognition way better than passive sitting. So yeah, doom scrolling on the couch for hours definitely doesn't count as a brain workout. And to really prove that extreme cognitive decline isn't just an inevitable part of aging, let me introduce you to the superagers. These are adults over 80 who have somehow preserved the memory and cognitive abilities of people decades younger, like people in their 50s or 60s. They completely defy the typical curve of cognitive aging, and scientists have obviously been desperate to figure out their secret.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is what happens as these superagers get older. Northwestern University research discovered that they make at least twice as many new neurons in their hippocampus as their typical peers. For a long time, science actually debated whether adults even grew new neurons. Well, not only do we grow them, but preserving that adult neurogenesis is a major signature of incredible cognitive resilience. Your brain actually has the capacity to keep building itself well into your 80s and 90s. How cool is that?
Which brings us to Act 3. The technological bridge, external augmentation, and restoring autonomy.
But look, what happens when biology does fail? When devastating diseases like ALS strike and our physical bodies literally lock us in? This is where we pivot from biology to technology. The evolution of communication devices has just been staggering. In the past, people with severe paralysis had to rely on painfully slow assistive tools or basic eye trackers that caused immense fatigue. Fast forward to 2020, and we moved to standard EEG cursor control systems. Better, for sure, but still clunky. But as of 2026, we are firmly in the era of AI-powered speech-decoding brain-computer interfaces, or BCIs. The leap from those frustrating old devices to near real-time AI speech decoding is nothing short of a total game-changer.
Just consider the incredible story of Casey Harrell. He's an ALS patient who participated in the UC Davis research study. Using an intracortical BCI, which involves tiny sensors implanted directly in his brain, Casey completely bypassed his paralyzed muscles. The AI translated his neural signals directly into words on a screen and eventually into audible synthetic speech. Over just a 2-year period, he regained his voice, his independence, and get this, was even able to sustain his full-time career. It brought him out of the total isolation of locked-in syndrome and completely restored his autonomy. It's just incredible.
Let's move to the next slide and see how this builds into the future. Because one of the biggest hurdles with BCIs right now is that your brain signals actually change slightly day to day, which means you have to do this exhausting recalibration. Well, enter neural digital twins. By recording continuous signals, researchers can build a personalized AI model of the user's brain dynamics. Using future 6G networks and edge computing, these digital twins can automatically adapt to decoding systems without constant recalibration. This plug-and-play stability is exactly what will finally make BCIs practical for everyday home use, completely freeing patients from the research lab.
Moving on to our final section, the future and ethics of neurotech, navigating the era of deep brain decoding.
As these profound medical breakthroughs move out of the lab and into daily life, we're entering an entirely new era of human experience. Because we aren't just decoding motor signals to help someone speak or move a cursor anymore. Researchers have recently described deep brain BCIs. These are implants near the lateral ventricles that can actually decode signals close to the brain's core memory and decision-making structures. We're moving from sensing the outer layers of the brain to actively sensing the deeper thought and emotional centers. The medical potential for treating severe psychiatric conditions here is immense, but as you can imagine, the implications for privacy are staggering.
A 2026 review on privacy preservation laid out perfectly why protecting mental privacy is fundamentally different from standard medical data. Think about it. If raw neural data is intercepted, it contains the most unfiltered versions of human intent. With decoded outputs, there's a real risk that unintended passing thoughts could be accidentally transcribed by the AI. And perhaps most critically, through what they call non-task inferences, an AI could look at your brain data while you're just trying to type an email and infer unrelated, highly sensitive mental states, like a hidden anxiety disorder or your baseline emotional state. It's a lot to wrap your head around. Because we are essentially living in the Wild West of neurotechnology right now, the international community is scrambling to catch up. The 2025 UNESCO Global Standards on Neurotechnology were established to provide some urgent, much-needed guidance on how to handle neural data and protect mental privacy. Legal scholars are debating the limits of property law and introducing brand new concepts like cognitive liberty, desperately trying to regulate this tech before it becomes as ubiquitous as the smartphone in your pocket.
Which brings us to a final profound question to leave you with. When technology can decode our deepest brainwaves, who owns your digital thoughts? The promise of restoring autonomy to the paralyzed and preserving our minds against dementia is absolutely one of the greatest scientific triumphs in human history. But as we merge our biological brains with these incredible digital bridges, we are fundamentally redefining the boundaries of the mind itself. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I hope this dive into the science leaves you eager to learn more about the dynamic engine inside your head.